Hi and welcome to GameSpot's first ever video review for Nintendo's GameCube. We're going to be talking today about Wave Race Blue Storm, and it's a jet ski racing game that's loosely based upon the original, which appeared on the Nintendo 64 back in 1996. The original, it was a pretty popular game. Critics gave it a lot of positive feedback because it was really the first game to ever recreate water accurately in a video game. So a lot of people were understandably excited about this sequel that's coming out for the GameCube. Fortunately, a lot of things have been changed for the GameCube version. Outwardly, it may seem like the same game, but when you really get into playing the game, there's a lot that's changed. The biggest change is the addition of the turbo. In the first game, some of you may have played it, but as you pass each buoy, your top speed would gradually build. Well, now as you get top speed, then you also have a turbo that you can now use that can get you cut off an extra 4 or 5 seconds off your time if you really need it. Another thing that really hasn't changed compared to the first one is the physics system, and there's really nothing wrong with that because the physics system in the first game was excellent. And again, in the new Wave Race Blue Storm, the physics of the way the boats interact with the water is really impressive. You can see some choppy water, and your ski will actually start skipping across the water. Sometimes you'll turn a corner and a wave will start building up behind your jet ski. You could actually catch that wave and start building speed just by surfing the wave, which is really impressive. And you can get a lot of feelings in this game that you probably have never felt in a lot of video games before, which is really what Wave Race's charm is. For Blue Storm, there are 6 entirely new tracks. They do look kind of similar to some of the ones from the N64 version, but they have all been completely changed as far as the layout is concerned. And then there's 2 tracks that actually appeared in the original Wave Race that have went basically untouched. And that would be Dolphin Park, which is where you actually just kind of warmed up in the first Wave Race. And then there's Southern Island, and if you remember correctly from the first game, that was the level with a lot of docks, and as you took each lap, the height of the water would change. So every lap you took, it had to be different, and a lot of people would say that that was the best track from the original Wave Race, so I really don't have a lot of complaints with them bringing that back. Plus, they've added in a few shortcuts as well. There are 3 main gameplay modes in the game. There's the Championship, which is the heart of the game. That's where you go up against 7 other computer-controlled riders. And it's a series of races, and at the end of the series, you want to have the most accumulated points. If you win that series, you'll go on to the next series where they'll tack on an extra 2 or 3 races, and it'll open up a new track. You can do that until you get to the Expert mode, and then once you beat Expert mode, you unlock the weather conditions. And the weather conditions can be used for the Trick Attack. And Trick Attack, if you remember correctly, was highly addictive in the first Wave Race, and it's pretty much the same thing this time around. You navigate a set of rings, and in between you try to pull tricks. You have a counter that counts down as you try to make it to each checkpoint, and you try to score as many points as possible in your one lap. Also, there's a time attack mode, and in most racing games, it's the same deal here. You can basically just race the tracks without anybody else out there to bother you, and you can try to best your top times. One kind of cool thing about the time attack mode is that you can save a ghost, and that ghost, instead of actually being your rider, will be a little remote-controlled helicopter that'll fly around the course, and that actually helps you to really improve your times. Probably the biggest improvement as far as long-term replay value is concerned is Wave Race Blue Storm's multiplayer mode. If you remember correctly, in the first game you could race with 2 players at once. Well, this time you can race with 4. Not only can you pick from any of the tracks that you've unlocked in Championship mode and race, you can also enter the Trick Attack mode with all 4 players, and that can get pretty exciting because the rings are fairly small. When you try to squeeze 4 people through those rings, it can get pretty hectic. And the same goes for the ramps. There's a lot of times where you'll launch off a ramp and you'll end up having a collision with someone else in midair. So it's a constant struggle with every corner to kind of jockey for position and get the line on that ring and then line up for the big jumps. When I first saw Wave Race Blue Storm, I was blown away by its graphics, but now that I've had some time to play with it, I'm not quite as overwhelmed. The water looks great, and I can tell you right now that it's the best looking water you've ever seen in a video game. And not only does it look real, it acts real as well. The water will hit objects on the track and it'll actually bounce back. If you're following behind somebody, their wake will actually kick up and it'll actually knock you off course. Even in some of the later jet ski racing games that you'll be seeing coming out later this year for other systems, the water just can't touch Wave Race Blue Storms. As I said before, the frame rate in this game is extremely smooth. It doesn't quite clip out at 60 like a lot of the next-gen games, but it stays solid at 30. And most importantly, in the multiplayer mode, it also stays locked at 30. So it may not be 60 frames per second, but the fact that it stays at a constant frame rate is so important because you never see it or notice it slowing down. Wave Race Blue Storm is the best racing game for the GameCube at launch. If you're looking for a racing game and you got 3 friends that play a lot, you really can't go wrong with this game. It's definitely not perfect, and the controls are difficult to come to grips with, even for people that may have played it originally. But people who are patient and don't have a short attention span, once you get past that initial hump, you'll really start to realize all the little small nuances in the game that make it great. Overall, I guess the one way I would describe Wave Race Blue Storm is that it's fast, it's addictive, and it's fun. But those who are maybe into more sim-oriented games with like real cars, you might want to give it a rent first and see if it's your cup of tea. But if you like the original, or if you're open-minded where your racing games are concerned, head on out and buy it.